The most dangerous manipulative sentence doesn't sound cruel. It sounds reasonable. And that's exactly why it works. Someone does something that hurts you. They cross a line. They dismiss you. They make you uncomfortable. You bring it up. And instead of answering what they did, they say something like, "You're too sensitive. You always do this. Why do you have to turn everything into a problem?" And suddenly the whole conversation changes. You are no longer talking about what they did. You are talking about yourself. That is the trap. And a lot of people do not realize they are inside it until it has already worked. Because these sentences are not really defenses. They are redirects. They take attention off the behavior and place it onto your reaction. Now their action is no longer the issue. Your emotions are. Your tone is. Your personality is. And the moment you start defending your reaction instead of examining their behavior, the manipulation is already working. Think about how fast it happens. You felt certain they said something wrong, certain they crossed a boundary, certain something about that moment felt off. Then they smile, or sigh, or act confused, and they say, "I was just joking. You need to relax. I do not know why you always make things weird." And now, instead of asking why they did it, you are explaining why you are not crazy. That pivot was the point. That was the whole move. And this works especially well on empathetic people. People who do not want to be unfair. People who care how they come across. People who take responsibility seriously. People who ask themselves, honestly, whether they might be wrong. Those people are easier to manipulate with this sentence, because the second you ask yourself, "Am I overreacting?" the focus is gone. You are now managing yourself instead of holding them accountable. Psychology has a name for this pattern: DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. In plain English, they do something wrong, then make you defend yourself. They deny what happened, they attack your reaction, then they flip the roles until somehow they look hurt and you look unreasonable. And once you see that pattern, you start noticing how often it appears. Sometimes it sounds dismissive. "You're too sensitive." Sometimes it sounds universal. "You always do this." Sometimes it sounds wounded. "I can't believe you'd think I'd do something like that." Different wording, same function. Every version pulls accountability off the table before it can land. And what makes this so dangerous is that it does not always sound aggressive. Sometimes it sounds calm. Sometimes it sounds casual. Sometimes it sounds like the most emotionally mature person in the room is the one quietly making you doubt yourself. That is why it is so hard to catch. Because you expect manipulation to sound manipulative. Most of the time, it doesn't. It sounds normal. It sounds small. It sounds like a sentence you could almost let pass. But the emotional effect tells the truth. If one sentence keeps pulling you away from what happened and back into defending who you are, pay attention. That is not resolution. That is control. Now, the hardest part is this. Some people do this on purpose. Others do it automatically. For them, it is a reflex, a learned escape, a way to avoid shame, blame, or consequences without even thinking about it. But whether it is calculated or habitual, the effect on you is the same. You leave the conversation feeling like the problem, not them. So how do you stop it from working? First, notice the pivot. You were talking about their action. Now they are talking about your reaction. That is the shift. Do not lose sight of it. Second, stay with the original point. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just clearly. I'm not asking whether you think I'm sensitive. I'm asking about what happened. That sentence is powerful because it shuts the exit door. It takes the conversation back to the one place they were trying to escape. And third, stop needing them to validate your reality before you trust it. This is where most people stay stuck. They wait for the apology, the admission, the moment where the other person finally says, "Yes, I did that. Yes, you were right." But that moment may never come. And if your clarity depends on their honesty, they still control the outcome. Sometimes the real win is not getting the confession. It is recognizing the pattern early enough to protect yourself from it. To say, quietly and clearly, "I see what just happened, and I am not following you there." Because the sentence only works as long as it makes you doubt yourself faster than you doubt the person creating the confusion. Once that changes, the power changes too. That is when the sentence starts to fail. That is when the fog begins to clear. That is not weakness. That is not oversensitivity. That is clarity.